Last week we did a recording just to bring a little awareness to full term and infant loss. And we got a lot of feedback. A lot of people reached out to us and had questions, learned things they didn't know. And it felt good to be giving hope to people that don't know that there's support out there, and to educate people that don't know anything about this, because we didn't know anything about it when we went through it. So we decided that we're going to continue doing these videos and see how it goes. One thing we do want to let everyone know is that we are not going to sugarcoat anything, and that might be rough for some people. So we're just going to tell the truth. So what we're going to talk about today is the beginning stages of us finding out we had lost our child, and that first big step after and delivering our child. Janina's gonna start and talk about Amelia.
So I was 39 weeks pregnant, definitely anxious to get things over with, was trying everything I could to really start inducing labor. I was busy eating dates and bouncing on my yoga ball, and was, it was Wednesday. I was headed to my 39-week appointment to my doctor. And he was doing kind of the usual jokes as he was doing in the beginning around, oh yeah, we're just sitting around waiting, and making fun of my waddling around. So kind of usual, joyful check-in. We'd been talking the last 2 weeks about movements having changed for me. So I didn't feel Emmy move as much anymore. But the week before I had an ultrasound, everything was fine. So again, he was asking me about it. And again, I said, yeah, I don't feel her as much anymore. I do kind of feel things, but it's not the same. So as he did every week, he would use his little device that he had to measure the heart rate, and it was taking a while, and things were weird. And we had it before where he just couldn't find the heart rate. So it didn't really make a lot out of it. And then he said, okay, I think we need to do an ultrasound. I can't find the heart rate. So we did that. And again, he didn't feel or see Emmy move. And that was hard. Honestly, I couldn't believe it. I felt sick. I was sitting there, I was shaking. Didn't know what to make of it. He said, look, these are my instruments. They might not be accurate. You have to go to a hospital immediately. We need to confirm what's happening. So John, my husband, and I, we raced to the hospital. And it was strange, honestly, because part of me just didn't want to believe what was happening. It was like so impossible, the thought of, out of nothing, her heart just stopping to beat. Went to the ER. They didn't let John in, so I had to go to the maternity ward on my own. And a doctor came in to do an ultrasound relatively quickly. They were super efficient. And she said, okay, I can't feel a heartbeat, but we need to find someone else, a proper technician, to come with a more accurate device and confirm that there's no heartbeat. And it was just like, what the heck is happening? Why are there so many ultrasounds? And it felt awful. So I had to wait an hour for someone else to come to confirm that there wasn't a heartbeat. At that point, luckily, they had John back into the room with me, so he was there for that. And the other doctor who was there before was really kind and nice, and basically explained to me what would happen. She told me that I would be induced, and that I would have to wait for however long until I was ready to give birth, until I was, dilated enough. luckily, I was already a little bit dilated. So for me, the process didn't take that long. They induced me at 8 p.m. At night. And then I gave birth to Emmy like the next day at lunchtime. But it felt forever. We didn't sleep that whole night. I didn't I felt back pain. I didn't really feel the contractions. It was so strange, but I was just so overwhelmed with the the grief that I wanted to get an epidural. I just didn't want to go through the pain. Like I didn't want to even feel the slightest bit of discomfort going through this experience. But it was strange because I had contractions and it was exactly the thing I had felt the weeks before when I thought Emmy was moving. So it was actually probably just contractions that I felt. I didn't feel her moving, but I was lying in this bed and, you know, I looked at my belly, I saw things move. I had the feeling like she was still alive, but obviously she wasn't. And it was such a weird feeling that, you know, even until the moment where I gave birth, I thought there was the slightest chance that, okay, maybe they got it wrong. Maybe she's still going to be alive. Maybe it's a miracle. And maybe she's just some insane fighter and she's going to come out alive. And really it was the moment when they gave me to her that it was just real, and like holding her was terrible, but also wonderful. You know, it's the first time I really felt like a mom. It's the first time I realized like how much I loved her. Like all of these feelings just came to me in that moment. So yeah, we spent an hour with her. We took a few pictures. We held her, and it was just so. I guess surprised how alive she felt, even though she was dead. Like she was warm. It just felt like she was sleeping.
So I guess one piece I didn't even know was that John couldn't come in with you right away.
No.
Maybe you probably told me that. I just didn't remember that. And that's what I mentioned this last week, you know, just we're doing this in the time of COVID. Like we couldn't bring mom, dad, like nobody was there for us. You know, we were allowed our spouse and that was it. And that's another factor too, is like, you know, we think back on, okay, obviously we have very visual memories of what happened to us, as everybody does, but you think back to it and you're like, it was just us, you know, we had nobody. You're communicating by phone what's going on, but that's, you know, thank God for that, just having that little phone with you, but that was all we had.
I still remember having to call my parents and telling them what was happening. Again, like such a bad moment that's just burned in my head. I think I waited till just after midnight to call my dad for the time difference in Germany, and my mom wasn't there. She was walking the dog, and I told my dad to sit down, and he knew something was wrong. And then having to tell him just broke my heart. He was crying, and like I've only seen my dad cry once or twice in his life, and having to tell him was horrible. It was awful.
Right. You remember exactly where you were sitting and what that phone call felt like. You remember like, and you know, you come to learn that's PTSD. You have a lot, not you, just you, but we have a lot of like it like sticks with you, you know, like it's traumatic because you have this view on what's going to happen in the next 1 week, next 3 weeks, and then it's just totally flipped. It's not anything what you've been learned, taught, thought, nothing.
Do you want to share your story, Kristen?
Yeah. So I was in my 37th week. And I had high fluid. They couldn't figure out why. In the end, it was one of the reasons where it's not connected to anything specifically. It did come within my 35th week, the fluid started to get high. So I was just seeing a specialist weekly, and they were great. You know, they answered all my questions. I could call them whenever I was nervous or. So there was a little bit of uncomfortableness to begin with, you know, but just you have that instinct as a mom, you know, like I'm going to stay on top of this. Um, so I go to my weekly appointment and the tech is like, oh, you're not going to see the doctor today. We're just going to get the number of the fluid and you'll be good to go. I'm like, okay. That morning driving there, I did say to Doug, I was like, I just don't think she's moving as much because she was really active. And the night prior, I did have an intense Braxton Hicks, what I thought was a Braxton Hicks. So the tech starts to, you know, put the jelly on my tummy and starts looking for the heartbeat. Now, this tech I've had before. She was really nice, really thorough. So I'm just letting her do her thing, you know. And then within a few minutes, she starts like clearing her throat and sitting up in her chair and taking the other wand and using a different one. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah. And then she pushes her chair back real fast and she jumps up and she goes, I'm just going to go get the doctor. I'm like, I thought you said I wasn't seeing the doctor today. And she's like, no, we just need to get the doctor because of the high fluid. And I'm like, okay, maybe she just changed her mind. So she runs out, which was weird. And then the doctor comes back, and this is a guy I haven't seen before. I guess they were short staffed that day or whatever. And within a minute, he tells me, you know, there's no heartbeat. And I remember hearing it and being like, no, like he's wrong, you know? So I sat up and I'm like, you're sure? And he said, yes. And he goes, I've been doing this for 30 years. Trust me when I say, you know, I'm sure. He felt genuine in his delivery, but it was still cold. It was okay. It is what it is. That was it. And he starts telling me I should get an autopsy. And he really doesn't understand why everybody doesn't do it. And I paused him. I was like, I'm not taking in anything you're saying. You need to stop. And he goes, okay. So he walks us down to a room and it just hit us. We just lost it, you know? And then we're like, okay, we have to deliver. There's no miracle button you can press. There's no help. Like it's just, you go through regular delivery, you know, like you did. It's just, your brain doesn't compute that at first, you know, it's like, okay, do I have everything I need for delivery? You know, where's my doctor right now? And you get all that arranged after you've just been told that your child died inside of you. So then we drove to the hospital and I have to admit, they were great there. We were very, very lucky. Everybody had experience and they were trained. We were very, very lucky. But my labor took a long, long time. So my body just was not ready. I was only 37 weeks. And then the next thing you know is they're like, okay, do you have a funeral home? We can't hold the baby that long. And then your mind just is like blank again, you know, and then it's like, okay, what do I do? You know, and you contact family and you think like, what is happening right now? Like you're not really 100% sure, but then it hits you. And then you go back like, oh my goodness, did she just move inside of me again? But no, those are the contractions. And it's like a trippy mindset. It's like your reality is distorted fully and you're not really taking in everything because you can't take in information like that in that short period of a time. It's just not humanly possible. So you do your best. And yeah, so we did deliver and had pictures done and picked out a burial plot and had a priest come in to bless her and everything, and then it's over. And then they try and help you recover the best that they can. But keep in mind, you're on delivery wing, right? There's other babies being born around you. And that is the most wild experience, because you still hold on to that very last second, and you still hope, like, okay, she's going to cry when she comes out. It might happen, but it's not a realistic thought, but it's there.
Oh yeah, I was 100% there. I struggled with the other babies around me as well. Like, a woman next to me was having twins, and I could hear the 2 heartbeats the whole time, like literally throughout the whole night. I was just hearing heartbeats. And it was so hard when you get the message, there's no heartbeat. And then eventually, like, her twins were born, and you just could hear the screaming, and it was terrible.
Yeah. I think right after, again, we lost it. But we did choose faith. We did. We dug deep, and we were like, okay, we'll never get an answer. We did do the autopsy. There was no reason. She was perfectly healthy, and I was perfectly healthy.
I found this hard, all of the decisions you had to make. I think the autopsy for me was a clear one. I can't believe, though, the doctor basically told you, like, right after you were told that Liv, it's not going to make it, like that he talks about that is terrible. I had the opposite to you, where I don't feel I had a good hospital. I wasn't really educated. Like, they didn't tell me about memory making and things I could do with Emmy, and all of these things I learned later as I was reading books. And I definitely started to get angry that there wasn't more support, and I didn't feel educated around what I could do and what my rights are and what I should be doing to really help with the grieving process.
Yeah, every hospital is so different. There is no standard. There is no same color that goes on the door to let everyone know what your situation in that room is. I mean, just in general, again, because of the time that we're in, hospitals were and are crazy atmospheres. I mean, like I said in the beginning, we're not going to sugarcoat anything, unfortunately. Not just because that's our personalities, but because we're doing this to answer all your questions, to teach people, to help people. And there is a lot of support out there. You have to look for it, but it's out there. And we hope that we can continue to provide support. Even if it wasn't you that went through it, it was your best friend or your daughter. You're all part of it. You're all together. That baby's not just for mom, So we're going to come back next week. I talked a lot today, but yeah, reach out to us again and let us know if you have more questions on this topic. I don't know that we'll revisit this exact one next week. But there's a lot more to talk about. So come back next week too.